Look here, I'm voting for Joe Biden. I get why racists and millionaires and people who stand at the intersection of those two groups are all in for 45. But for the rest of us, the self-preservation dictates that Biden is the better choice. Thursday's night, um, dueling presidential town halls, which featured a belligerent 45 and a comparatively contemplative Biden, drove that all the way home. If I believed at this late stage that the undecided voters were real and not people with made up minds in desperate need of attention, I cannot imagine how the contrast could have been any starker or the decision being any clearer. With that being said, tonight's event, this event, the one event that happened 5 days ago, also reaffirmed how desperately we will need to hold Biden's feet to the fire if he wins this thing. Again and again, the former vice president's answers highlighted political joints where he not only needs to be shoved hard leftward, but also just to do a better job. I literally winced when Biden responded to a question about what he would say besides "you ain't black," and two young black voters who see voting for you as further participation in the system that continues to not protect them. There were a lot of places to start that answer. An apology and acknowledgement of what a bad idea it was to declare "you ain't black" would have been an obvious choice. Instead, Biden decided to talk about criminal justice, obviously a particular salient discussion we're all having right now, but also a reminder that politicians, especially the older white guys, seem to think that conversations about race, read basically black people, always relate to crime. We went on to rattle off a bunch of policies to address the racial wealth gap, but it was clear he had no idea how to talk to young black progressive voters about issues that might interest him: environmental racism, college debt forgiveness, for example, meaning two among them, yeah. Then there was his response to a question on his hindsight view of the 1994 crime bill that was passed. As he has over this election, Biden conceded that the legislation had been a mistake, an admission that probably deserves measured recognition. But he also spent a fair amount of time spreading out the blame, noting that the Congressional Black Caucus voted for the bill at the time, and going on about how the real problem was how the law was applied at the state level. At this point, the conversation about mass incarceration and racism, as criminal justice has moved past this kind of waffling, just like the L. Like, just take the L, my guy. Let's work from here. Later, Biden later affirmed that he still believes that more cops mean less crime. We now know that while the lion's share of the 1994 crime bill went to cash for cops, only 1.3% of the crime declined from 1993 to up to basically only 1% of the crime declined from 1993 to 2000 could be attributed to the additional um, could be attributed to the additional officers that paid for. It's dunderheaded at this point to keep suggesting that the solution to our problem is throwing more police at them and more cash at the police. I know there are readers who will roll their eyes and think he has to say that stuff just to get elected, but there's also value in being honest about past mistakes and normalizing the facts about how policing fails. Even Biden's running mate, the one-time self-identified top cop of California, has recently backed off this position. Part of what has been part of what has been upside down in the policing policy in America is that we have confused having safe communities with hiring more cops on the street, as though that is the way to achieve safe communities, Harris said back in June, when in fact the real way to achieve safe and healthy communities is to invest in those communities. And there was a moment when Biden, as he's done before, suggested that the best way for cops to de-escalate situations is to pull out their weapons, aim, and shoot them in the leg, which is definitely not how de-escalation works, and a talking point he's been using for months, and that his team should have him retire stat. There were times where Biden hit the mark for sure. A very quick and complete roundup, he talked about the fact that transgender folks of color, especially black trans women, need to be protected. He talked specifically about funding historically black colleges and universities. He recognized that every police officer who who stands by and says nothing about bad cops is a problem, and if only by comparison to and if only by comparison the 45's Encounter program to Rave Fest, he discussed COVID-19 the way a sane person would. Again, I'm voting for Biden without question, but that doesn't mean I can't recognize that there are problems with his stances either, or where his political outlook is essentially the same old centrist proactive fear of prompting a backlash with too much progressivism that got us here in the first place. I'm not naive. I did not expect for Biden, who we are all acquainted with by now, to take town hall stage tonight and offer up a true progressive vision, but I think we should be prepared to press him for more and for better when he's selected, fingers crossed. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Random Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.